Plato said the world was shaped by unseen ideas, perfect forms that exist beyond what we can touch. Aristotle said no, only what you can see, measure, and label is real. That split didn't end in Greece. It became the blueprint for every system of control that came after. From empire to education, from religion to science. This isn't just some ancient argument between old philosophers. It continues to shape everything we're living through right now. In this episode, we're going to discover what Lyndon LaRouche thought about Karl Marx and his place in history. Lyndon LaRouche begins this section by acknowledging Karl Marx's contributions to human knowledge, especially his analysis of class struggle and critique of capitalism. But he argues that Marx's doctrine had no real place within the secret knowledge of the elites. Marx wrote, "All history is the history of class struggles." LaRouche, however, argues that Marx is only partly correct. Marx also wrote that the rise of industrial, urban-centered capitalism was a major step in ending the idiocracy of rural life. To LaRouche, this wasn't liberation, it was control. By uprooting people from self-sufficient land-based communities and concentrating them in centralized industrial cities, the ruling class could more easily manage labor, thought, and dissent. It was a key mechanism of capitalism, one Marx unintentionally echoed. In abandoning idealism and embracing a purely materialist view of the human mind, Marx may have cut himself off from the very secret knowledge he sought. In LaRouche's opinion, Marx missed the bigger picture because he failed to recognize that the true primary determinants of human history were ultimately shaped by the philosophical debate between factions of Plato and Aristotle in the 4th century BC. He reduced human existence to material conditions and economic conflict, leaving out the spiritual dimension, the pursuit of reason, creativity, and moral development. Plato believed that positive social forces have always been shaped by a Platonic or Neoplatonic intelligentsia, thinkers who, in every era, have been influenced by great universal thinkers. According to LaRouche, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz was the last of these universal thinkers.
Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz was a philosopher, a mathematician, a scientist who co-invented calculus, not to reduce the world to numbers, but to show its elegant structure. He believed the universe was made of living monads, not dead matter. Leibniz imagined a world ruled by reason, justice, and joy. LaRouche called him the last universal intellect. After Leibniz, something changed. The Enlightenment thinkers who followed stopped asking how everything is connected and started dissecting its parts. The unified vision collapsed into disciplines. Leibniz stood at that precipice, the last thinker who could hold the entirety of human knowledge in one mind and still see it whole, not as fragments.
LaRouche notes that it was Lenin's alignment with these Platonic ideals that led to his revolutionary success, not Marx's ideology. After the 1850 treaty in Vienna, a distorted version of history quickly gained official status across Germany and much of Europe. These became the dominant academic views during Marx's time, views that were in reality more ridiculous than reputable. This false narrative was accepted by Marx, especially the myth of the Ninth of Thermidor, which led to serious errors in his interpretation of European intellectual history.
After Napoleon was defeated in 1815, Europe's monarchs gathered for the Treaty of Vienna with one goal: put things back the way they were. They wanted to restore the old order of monarchies and aristocrats who'd been threatened by the revolutionary ideas Napoleon had spread across Europe. They didn't just restore the political structure. They rewrote the story. The victorious powers launched an early propaganda campaign, crafting historical narratives that served their interests. This fake history had three key features. It glorified empires and monarchies, painting royal rule as natural, noble, and divinely ordained rather than as systems that concentrated wealth and power in the hands of a few. It erased republican ideals, Platonic philosophy, and universal human rights, making them inconvenient truths. Instead of acknowledging revolutions as legitimate resistance to oppression, the establishment narrative portrayed them as dangerous mob violence that threatened civilization. The result? A version of history designed to make people forget that power structures can be challenged, and that ordinary people can shape the world. When we talk about fake history in this context, we're describing how those in power control the present by controlling the past.
After the 1850 Treaty of Vienna, the Neoplatonic movement in Europe all but vanished. However, in America, a small circle of connected figures such as John Quincy Adams, Henry C. Carey, and Henry Clay kept the Neoplatonic tradition alive.
These men were part of the American Whig Party, a political group that emerged in the early 19th century, opposing presidential overreach and advocating for a strong modern nation. The Whigs championed economic nationalism through what they called the American system, which promoted protective tariffs, federal investment in infrastructure like roads and canals, and a national bank to stabilize the economy. They believed in balancing modernization with moral progress, grounded in evangelical Protestantism.
The Whigs viewed Britain as a persistent threat, not only to the United States, but to human freedom. They viewed themselves as defenders of republican self-government. Marx believed that Britain was the perfect example of how industrial capitalism should develop. But Henry C. Carey showed in his writings that this idea was wrong. Carey argued that although Britain seemed industrial and capitalist, it was actually controlled by a small, powerful elite working against true capitalism. Despite clear evidence against his view, Marx refused to accept these facts and stubbornly held to his belief in the British model. Marx's ideas about history were shaped by significant flaws in his theory of knowledge. Along with Friedrich Engels, he laid the groundwork for the misguided Soviet doctrines of perception and knowledge. A key issue was their belief that human perception is merely a passive mirror, reflecting the world exactly as it is, and that our ideas are just reflections of material conditions in society, especially the development of productive forces.
Marx was the godfather of all the collectivist ideologies that shaped the 20th century: socialism, communism, labor movements. Marx attacked the capitalists but not the oligarchs. He critiqued class but never the philosophical control structures that create and maintain class itself. Marx's philosophy was built on a version of history that had already been rewritten, one that erased the Platonic tradition, reframed revolutions as chaos, and pushed materialist ideologies meant to suppress spiritual and philosophical depth. By reducing history to economics and material forces, Marx ignored the deeper engine of human progress: the creative mind, moral agency, and the power of higher ideals. In the end, his framework limited the scope of true revolutionary change, turning liberation into management and consciousness into compliance.
To LaRouche, Marx wasn't a revolutionary. He was a prototype of what Lenin ironically called a useful idiot, someone who thought they were fighting the system but ended up reinforcing it. The oligarchy never went away. They now puppeteer the left, managing dissent with polished slogans like sustainability, inclusion, and safety, all while dragging the world back into a new kind of feudalism. Collectivism is a utopian illusion. Its true purpose to centralize power under the guise of equality by eroding individual autonomy and fostering dependence to ensure the masses remain subservient to the ruling elite. True liberation doesn't come from the collective. It comes from sovereign minds, independent thinkers, and refusing the script. That's the real revolution. Before you go, I want to leave you with a small act of rebellion. This week, your mission is simple. Bring back humanism. Look up. Say hi. How are you today? And don't forget to smile. It might hurt the first 100 times. Those muscles might not have been used in a while, but I promise it gets easier. These small things are free, and they're more than just kindness. They're resistance. Every genuine moment of kindness pushes back against the machine. Let's bring the spirit of Plato back by remembering that virtue isn't found in theories or systems. It's found in how we treat each other. Plato taught that the good, the true, and the beautiful are one. Let our kindness be beautiful, our words serve truth, and our choices do good. This is how we rehumanize the world, one real moment at a time. Until next time, may the truth be with you.